TCI is brought to you by Spendthrift Stallion Arch. Grade 1 Arkansas Derby winner by Arch. Look for his first 2-year-olds in 2015.
Welcome back to TCI, your inside track to the Triple Crown. Alongside Joel Cunningham, I'm John Siegel. Well, Joel, we got a lot to talk about. We had a lot of races last weekend. Let's jump right in, and let's start off with the Wood Memorial. You know, we kind of went in there wondering about Daredevil. Would he get the distance as the races got longer? Tell me, what did you think about his performance in the race?
Well, obviously, he didn't handle the distance last Saturday, and I'll be honest with you, I was never comfortable with him down the backstretch, even though he was right there in a stalking position, which I felt like he could maybe sit that trip like we talked about. But the difference was, you know, they go 24-2 for the opening, quarter mile. They go the half and almost 50, John. This horse, I don't even know if he's ever worked as slow as 50. So, again, I think his weapon is his cruising speed. So, in my opinion, in that scenario, he needed to get into a rhythm, go a lot quicker, take the lead, and see how far that cruising speed was going to take him. They instead maybe outthought the situation, because I don't know if he's a turn-of-foot kind of horse, John. I think he wants to get in a rhythm. That's his best chance of seeing out the distance. He wasn't able to do that, and it turned into a grinder's kind of race because of the pace being very slow, and we saw maybe the ultimate grinder win, and that's Frosted, and wow, what a good rebound for Frosted. He does come home fast enough. I mean, they get a 103 buyer in here, legitimate Wood Memorial time. So for Frosted, good to see him. You know, he's a horse, again, that we liked in the Fountain of Youth.
Right. And
he completely fell apart the last eighth of a mile. Now, there's some rumors that maybe they did a tieback surgery on the throat. I don't know how legitimate that is. Whatever it was, Frosted definitely responded. We saw that talent. We finally saw that breakthrough win for him.
Yeah, it's good to see him back, and we'll look and see where he ends up on the TCI Top 10 in a minute. But I want to talk about the Santa Anita Derby real quick. You know, one thing I liked about this weekend was that the favorites really performed well. You know, going into the Derby, it's one of those things where you want to see the good horses really rise to the top. And I'll be honest with you, I haven't been super thrilled with the 3-year-olds, but man, the ones that are really good, they look like they're going to be really good. And I'm talking about Dortmund, of course.
Well, I think the California 3-year-olds, particularly, when you look at the race replay here, the Santa Anita Derby with Dortmund here on the lead, I think this was the deepest prep race. That's why it was the most important in our eyes leading up to the Derby, because it was legitimately 3, 4, 5 colts deep. You see Dortmund here draw off. Now, I think he went, a pretty fair pace. Let's say that. I mean, anytime you go 110 and change, you look at the opening quarter and half was legitimate. Look at him draw away here. I mean, this is very easy for him. A colt that's just so sharp. He found himself on the lead again, John. Amazingly, I mean, here's a colt, his last 2 races, I would never thought he would score wire-to-wire wins in his last 2. I'm not so sure how that helps him going up to the Derby. He's shown that he's been in a fight before. He won't make the lead in the Derby. He's going to have to pass horses. He has that grinding type style, but he's a very agile horse for a 17-hands horse. I think that's going to help him in the Derby, in a race that he's going to have to negotiate some traffic. But, the Santa Anita Derby, the way that track was playing, I mean, if you looked at the times, they were going pretty quick, but the fact that the whole field was, not strung out at all down the backstretch, I feel like the track was just fast. I think even though he was going pretty good splits early, it was easy for Dortmund. And so to me, with Bolo having a wide trip, Prospect Park really needing a pace meltdown up front to kick it in late, it really didn't set up for the other horses. So I think Dortmund, again, just like in his previous race, got an advantageous setup, but it takes a good horse to make his own trip like that. So credit Dortmund. He got a 106 buyer, very legitimate time the way he flew home like Frosted did.
Yeah, and what I like about it, like you say, he's a big horse. He stumbles out of the gate but doesn't panic. He's getting to where he's seasoned, and he seems like he's getting better.
Yes.
Let's talk about our number 1 on the TCI Top 10. Of course, I'm talking about Carpe Diem. When you looked at this field here in the Bluegrass, it didn't seem super salty. It was kind of looked like it was his race to lose. He ran pretty well, man. I mean, it was a very impressive race, but it's funny to hear Johnny V kind of talk about him. He says he's a colt that when he takes the lead, you kind of got to remind him, hey, let's pay attention to business. What did you think of his performance?
We'll go now to the race replay at Keeneland, and this is exactly how I thought the Bluegrass would unfold. Of the 3 races, this actually unfolded the way I thought. With Ocho making the lead, Carpe Diem with the tactical speed, knowing he's on the best horse. Johnny V kept him out of trouble, stalking Ocho, and then powered away in the stretch. And I like Danzig Mood to run second here, which he does. I do think there was a severe outside bias at Keeneland Saturday. Nothing on the rail ran well. It was virtually dead. The crown on the track's where you wanted to be. And you see here the 1-2 finishers. Carpe Diem does win easy. The question is, I do think he, if you see the gallop out here as the years go up, I do think he went very well within himself. I think it was a good prep for him to trend up to another top performance since third off the layoff in the Derby. But he only got a 95 buyer, John. And we're talking about Dortmund running 106 buyers. Several horses, I mean, everybody in our TCI top 10 has broken the 100 buyer barrier at this point. Carpe Diem has not. So we really need to see him move up, excel at a mile and a quarter, third off the layoff. We need to see him prove, at least on the buyer system, that he can be number one on our list. Because let's be honest, John, if you're a buyer fan, you probably wonder about Carpe Diem a little bit.
Yeah, but let's talk, Todd's always kind of wanted these horses to trend up. He doesn't like them to have their best performance. He's a conservative guy. If they put their best, he likes to give them time. This colt now is going to have 4 weeks to the Derby. So, I mean, like you said, it looks like he's got room to improve. He just keeps getting better. But let's take a look at the TCI top 10 and let's see how it shakes out. I'm interested to see what you do with Daredevil.
Yeah, let's go to the TCI top 10 now, brought to you by our friends at DRF Bets. And you look at our top 10 here, I'm not willing to change the top 3 yet. It's crazy I have Dortmund in the 3 spot right now, but I want to see how American Pharoah runs. I will say this, with Daredevil not showing up in the wood, he's not going on to the Derby, to me that helps American Pharoah. I mean, when you look at the pace scenario in the Derby, there's some tactical horses, but quite honestly, the best horses are either come from off the pace types. You have American Pharoah who could try to pull the Bodemeister type scenario this year. So I'm going to wait until the Arkansas Derby's run before I modify the top 3. I think most people agree. Those are the 3 best horses. Bolo, I still think, had a wide trip. Has an excuse to get better in a mile and a quarter at Churchill. He's a top 5 horse for me. Move Tahij, I think you have to move him in the top 5. I move Firing Line up. Prospect Park, again, didn't get quite the setup. Disappointing for him, but, he's another colt that I question. He might be a mile and an eighth at his ceiling, maybe not a mile and a quarter horse. Materiality, I think you have to move him up. I mean, he's another tactical horse now with Daredevil not in, with a possible moderate pace scenario in the Derby. He becomes more interesting to me. Frosted, we obviously talked about a horse we like this quality, and an upstart stays on the list for us, John. So that's the 10 right now. And you saw what I was talking about there. I mean, everybody has broken that 100 buyer marker so far, besides our number 1, Carpe Diem.
And I want to say something. I think the point system has worked out pretty well this year. We've talked about the earnings and the points. There is one interesting thing, though. These points, they're worth so much here at the end. You're going to see kind of horses that run second or third possibly get enough points to get into the Derby.
Right.
We're going to see that again this weekend in the Arkansas Derby. It's the last major prep. We'll be 3 weeks out. American Pharoah, he looks really salty in there. But, Joel, some of these horses are going to make it in the field just running second.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and that's why last week it was so pivotal. First, second, runners in the Wood, Bluegrass, Santa Anita Derby, we're going to qualify for the Derby. So that's 6 horses out of 20 right there. Now, a lot of those horses had already qualified, obviously, prior. Same thing here. American Pharoah, he's already in if he wants to be in. If he runs well and takes care of business in the Arkansas Derby. I tell you what, he looks awful tough in here, but there is more speed. He has to go another 16th of a mile.
Yep.
Bridget's Big Love, he's a colt that's pretty quick. Now, look on the outside at the maiden, Win the Space. He's a horse that's been sprinting, certainly could have some outside speed there. So watch out for the Truth or Else, a horse that's getting blinkers. I don't think he liked the setup last time in the Rebel. I think in a bigger field here, Calvin's going to save ground from the rail. If he responds with blinkers, you look at his last couple works, they've been pretty sharp. Third off the layoff for Ken McPeak, should love a mile and eighth, and he's a closer. Watch out for the Truth or Else sort of being that. He looks like he kind of has that arch kind of feel to me. A horse that we liked a few years ago was about 20-1 or so in the Arkansas Derby and won. I know he's not as good as American Pharoah, but if somebody goes American Pharoah early and pushes him, the Truth or Else are far right. Those horses, I think, can contend in here. Those are the 2 best off-the-pace type horses. However, I expect American Pharoah, again, to go to the lead here. The way he's training right now, John, he's just – there are clockers in California that are throwing out legends like Seattle Sloop when they watch this horse train right now. So I tell you what – I think he goes a lead here, and even if he doesn't make the lead, as long as he's in the clear, I think he wins. He's just doing so well.
So what do you make, real quick, what do you make of Mr. Z going in there? I mean, it's pretty interesting. You got, the Zayat stables, they're putting 2 horses in here. I mean, he's coming back off of a disappointing performance just 2 weeks. But what's interesting, you're talking about a horse that could go with him. I mean, Mr. Z's been on the front end before, so it's kind of strange.
He's getting blinkers again. And while Mr. Z's been on the front end, he hasn't really been on the front end in a race with a horse as brilliant as American Pharoah. I don't think Mr. Zayat's going to allow Mr. Z to go tackle American Pharoah early if they want to go to lead with American Pharoah. That's just my opinion. I think this is Lucas bringing a colt back that has shown that he can run in a quick turnaround. This is his home track. They're trying to earn a berth into the Derby. Obviously, Mr. Zebrook has made it Churchill, so we know he likes Churchill. So to me, this is Lucas with a good colt trying to find his way back in the Derby this year.
All right, well, thank you, Joel. Yep. Thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come back next week. We'll recap the Arkansas Derby, and we'll have a better clue of what the Derby field is going to look like.